What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron, and a lot happened over the weekend in the fantasy football world, and we are here to break it all down with my top 10 lessons learned from week 5 as we look forward to week 6. This is where I break down all of the usage, data, stats, trends that you need to know, along with my rookie running back carousel, the rookie receiver report. Pretty much the idea here is that I'm going to save you hours of scrolling box scores and Twitter threads and articles and break down everything you need to know into one consolidated video to win your league, beat your friends, all of the above. As always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new. And our first takeaway from week 5 as we look ahead to week 6 is the world famous rookie receiver report. This, as always, is sponsored by Underdog. When you use promo code RON and you play $5, you will get $50 in bonus funds in your account that you can use on the Gimme Pick'ems in the Pick'em lobby. You could use them in the Pick'em lobby in general. They have drafts. We got NHL season happening, I believe, tomorrow. NBA season happening really soon as well. I definitely want to get some drafts in on there because that is, like, genuinely, I'm speaking honestly here. I play those contests because I cannot be bothered during football season I am not going to set an NBA lineup, okay? I do not care if Dennis Schroeder tweaks his ankle like November 17th. I am not playing waivers. I'm not doing all of that. Best ball is the way to go when it comes to NBA, hockey, all of the weird sports, in my humble opinion. That, of course, can be found using promo code RON in the description and the comment section down below. Go check out Underdog. Now, the rookie receiver report. These are all rookie wide receivers and tight ends from the 2025 class, of course, sorted by their week 5 route percentage. The guys not listed are the guys above that are playing on Monday Night Football or have bye weeks this week. But here's how this works, okay? We have their last 3 route percentage shares, which is just what percentage of the pass plays is this receiver running a route on the field for. We want players that are involved in pass plays. Anything over 80% is solid. Anything over 90% is great. Targets per out run. How much volume are you commanding on a per route basis? Anything over 20% is good. Yards per out run. Are you efficient on a per route basis? Anything over 2 is good. First downs per out run. Are you not only being efficient and commanding volume, but are you moving the chains and helping out your offense? Anything over 10% is really good. And then PFF grade. Do you look good on film? Anything over 75 is good. Anything over 80 is truly elite. Now, we're just going to go right down the board here, sorted by route percentage. We have Tetairoa McMillan. This one's tough. It's more of the same. I am very certain that Tetairoa McMillan is a good wide receiver, right? 23% targets per out run. The fact that he's over 10% first downs per out run in this offense is amazing. 75 plus PFF grade right here with Emeka Egbuka. Amazing. It's just simply that he's in a Panthers offense, and he's also been unlucky, okay? Right now, he's about the wide receiver 30-ish in points per game. This week, he was about the wide receiver 25. He had a fine game against the Dolphins, but we're missing out on a true ceiling-style performance, right? Like, his box score in this one, 8 targets, that's great. That is now his 3rd game in a row with 8 or more targets. That's actually his 5th game in a row. All 5 games this year, 8 or more targets per game. That is amazing volume for a rookie wide receiver. It's just that he hasn't been able to find a lot of efficiency or find the end zone here. He has 2.5 expected touchdowns by PFF's expected usage model, just meaning based on the amount of yards he has, based on the amount of red zone targets he's seen, he should have at this point 2 to 3 touchdowns. He simply does not. I think those are going to come. He gets the Cowboys up next and then the Jets after that. It's got to be time for this guy to score a touchdown, and then eventually I think he's going to be a wide receiver 2 in points per game when it's all said and done this season. Then we can talk about Emeka Egbuka. Man, just let me talk my shit for a second here. That's what I have written down. Like, this has been somebody we were super high on. We were making comparisons. I pulled up a clip on Twitter. We were making comparisons of him to Justin Jefferson or having like one of these Puka Nacua style rookie seasons where I just think that his talent was undeniable. He was drafted later than his talent would have told you. My wide receiver prospect model had him as the wide receiver 2. I have not bet 1,000 on this season. We have plenty of whiffs. We have plenty of misses. Trayvon Henderson has sucked. But Emeka Egbuka, in a world of uncertainty and heartbreak, has just been everything I could have ever imagined. In this game versus the Seahawks, beautiful uniform matchup, by the way. I said on Twitter, like, if this game was just reruns on repeat, that would be heaven for me. Just the uniform matchup, the game was amazing, but Emeka Egbuka, after getting his first 100-yard receiving game last week, he follows that up with 7 for 163 yards and a touchdown, putting him up to 31.3 PPR points this week. I believe that was the wide receiver 1 overall, and you can also see here he is now pacing in elite territory, where when we talk about most PPR points through a wide receiver's first 5 career games ever, it is Puka Nacua, it is Randy Moss, it is Emeka Egbuka, it is Malik Neighbors, it is Jamar Chase. That is a rock-solid top 5 group to be a part of. And the scary thing at first with Emeka Egbuka was his per-route metrics weren't amazing, and he was kind of getting there on touchdowns. He was looking a little Jordan Addison-y, a little Jahan Dotson-y, and then the last few weeks he's just been on a whole other planet. Through 5 career games, he's looking like guys like Randy Moss and Jamar Chase. 22 catches, 400-plus yards, 5-plus touchdowns for all 3 of them. It's just really, really encouraging here, where now his targets per route run is the number we're looking for. And if you guys remember going back to like week 2 or week 3, I remember kind of looking at him being like, I mean, he's putting up points, but his per route stuff isn't great. And then you look around the industry and everyone's like, oh, sell high on Emeka Egbuka, sell high on Emeka Egbuka. It's like, we're 2 weeks in. He doesn't have to have a 3 yards per route run. Like, it's going to get there. The production is truly, like, I think when we zoom out, and I don't want to be preaching too much here, but like, the usage stuff is great. I am a nerd myself. This is a spreadsheet that I made, okay? I am the nerd here, but I think that we sometimes get too caught up in the separation score and the per route run. Like, yes, we're looking at per route run here, but I also use the common sense to where I have yet to list Egbuka as a sell high this season. I've refused to do it because, first and foremost, we need the production. And if the production's coming, there's no reason to nitpick separation score or per route metrics and all of that. But now the per route metrics are here. 2.49 yards per route run leads the entire class. He has been efficient. He's commanding volume on a per route basis. He's moving the chains on a per route basis. His PFF grade is skyrocketing. It is up and to the right for Emeka Egbuka here. You can look here as well. He is pacing really well with the rookie studs of last year, right? Brock Bowers, Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey. He's now in the mix with all of them. He leads all of them in yards per route run. He has the lowest targets per route run. He has the lowest first downs per route run and the lowest PFF grade. But I think if I was to show you these guys' stats through their first 5 games, I think Egbuka would actually be among the high end, because that's the beauty of these rookies is they only get better. Now, I'm not saying Egbuka at this point is at 20-plus points per game. I'm not saying he's going to get to 25-plus points per game, but his per route stuff, like targets per route run, should kind of come up. His yards per route run might come down a little bit, but I just believe that this is what he is. I don't know that he's going to stay at 20-plus points per game, but he's going to be Brian Thomas at worst, is kind of how I'm thinking about it, of 16-plus points per game as just a really, really strong rookie year hit. I think if you have him in Dynasty, you hold on for dear life. You have him in Redraft, you hold on for dear life. Stop getting too cute. There's no reason to sell high. It's just this guy is a wide receiver 1 rest of season. He is a wide receiver 1 in Dynasty. He is that guy. Just enjoy the ride. Let's move on now to Alec Iomanner. Now, this one I'll actually take a small L on. Week 1, he was one of our bigger waiver wire ads. It looked like things were trending up. He's hit a bit of a wall. He's starting to cool off a little bit. His per route metrics, we now have a pretty big sample of Alec Iomanner. They're pretty pedestrian, right? Like 17.6% targets per route run. Like, that's fine. He's not been very efficient. First downs per route run, he's been okay. PFF grade, he's been okay. I just think the expectations of, this guy's a mystery box, and maybe he can beat Amon-Ra St. Brown or Rashee Rice as a late season league winner, I would probably slow my roll on that. I think that he's now transitioning more into your day 3 gems, which are still good, right? Like, day 3 receivers have such a low bar to meet. Like, a lot of these guys end up being nobody. They end up being nobody. You know what I mean? Like, you can start naming random day 3 wide receivers like Gary Jennings, or is Leonte Carew one? Like, you can just go down the list of day 3 wide receivers that have never mattered. But Alec Iomanner is kind of on this track of like your Khalil Shakirs or Romeo Dobbs or Darnell Mooney. I think Gabe Davis is in there as well. Darius Slayton's another one. Like, I think that Iomanner's in that bucket, which is nice. Like, for a day 3 wide receiver, that's nice. But being a like monster smash, I would be pretty shocked if he ended up being one of those guys. Now, I will say, I talked about it on the last video, or I say day 3 all the time. I got a comment of like, what do you mean by that? It's just like the days of the NFL draft. Day 1 is first round, day 2 is round 2 and 3, and then day 3 is round 4 plus. And if you get any hits on day 3, that's a massive win in fantasy and in real life for NFL front offices. So the expectations for day 3 guys are much, much lower, really across the board. But then we can talk about Isaiah Bond here. The positive note is without Cedric Tillman, he's running a lot of routes. 86% route share is a lot. He's commanding volume, 18% targets per out run, but we got nothing to show for it. He has 6+ targets in back-to-back games, but he hasn't really done anything with that volume. So he's still somebody we're looking at, we're keeping an eye at. But again, one of these like UDFA day 3 guys, the bar is so low that just simply running routes and commanding targets is a win for him in Dynasty, and he's still just a deep stash in redraft leagues. Now, I will say Mason Taylor, I'll actually take my L on Mason Taylor. His per route stuff was brutal through the first 2 or so weeks, where it just seemed like he was running routes, he wasn't commanding volume, he wasn't efficient. He actually started losing routes to the backup Jeremy Rucker and was looking really rough, but now he actually sets another 80% route share the first time he's done it since week 1. So they're actually leaning into Mason Taylor, this Jets offense, and his per route metrics have now completely rebounded. 1.19 yards per out run isn't good, but for a tight end, that's like fine. It's passable. But 8.2% first downs per out run on a team that's not getting a lot of first downs through the air is really impressive. 17% targets per out run for a rookie tight end, that's really good. Just looking at his last two games versus Miami last week, he had 7 targets, 5 catches, 65 yards. This week, 12 targets, 9 catches, 67 yards for 17.7 PPR points. You're not going to get many touchdowns with Mason Taylor in this offense, but he's absolutely a streamable tight end moving forward. And in Dynasty, you should feel good about him. Like he seems like he's going to be a guy with real staying power. Now, is he going to end up being a like Brenton Strange is kind of on one spectrum of a round 2 pick hit, or could he be like a Trey McBride, right? So the range of outcomes is very wide for Mason Taylor long term, but he's at least a guy. He is at least at the conversation. You know, he's not Jason Morrow. He's not Luke Schoonmaker or one of these guys that gets drafted in round 2 and you never hear of him again. He's at least a guy. Then we can talk about Tyler Warren, more of the same. His routes only dipped because the Colts absolutely blew the doors off of the Raiders here, but his per route metrics still amazing. Nothing to really talk about with Tyler Warren. Oh yeah, never mind. Let me actually show you a stat for Mason Taylor here. This is from Datarama over the last 3 weeks. 5th among tight ends in first read target share, 3rd among tight ends in target share, 5th among tight ends in targets per out run, 8th among tight ends in yards per game. So that is really, really encouraging stuff in the short term for Mason Taylor. Then we can talk about Arian Smith, another Jet. He is a waste of an NFL route, is really all that I can say here. At the time, I begged and pleaded the Jets to take Torrey Horton, take Alec Iomanner. Is Iomanner like the greatest of all time? No, but is he better than a guy doing 4.5% targets per out run, 0.21? Like, this is just, it's unserious what this is for a rookie wide receiver. I don't know. I wish him all the best, but my God, that's a brutal pick. We can talk about Oronde Gadsden. His routes keep climbing, right? 28% in week 3, then 50%, then 61%. Per route stuff starting to dip a little bit, but still strong. Still strong for another. Again, day 3 tight ends. I baby these guys. If you can show me anything as a day 3 tight end, that is a win. But the issue is he only has had 4 targets since his first game where he had 7 targets. So it's just tough. There's a lot of mouths to feed in this offense. And for a tight end, as a rookie tight end, to be a real difference maker, it's going to be tough. So he's just very much a fun dynasty stash and really only a stash in really deep redraft leagues. Like we're talking 14, 16 teamers, tight end premium type of leagues is where Gadsden makes sense. Then we talk about Dante Thornton. His routes are declining. They went from 74% to 56%. His per route metrics are really bad at this point. I think that he is 2 games, like his last 2 games, I don't think he had a single target. He's had 2 targets in back-to-back games. He hasn't recorded a catch since week 3 is what I meant to say. Then we can talk about Harold Fannin. This one's tough. Fannon's starting to fall a little bit here. His per route stuff's still not bad, right? 20% plus targets per out run is still very impressive. Tough to be efficient when your quarterback play has been so bad, but his route share on a week-to-week basis is just so all over the place, right? 50%, then 71%, then 56%. Seems like they sort of decided to go towards David Njoku this week with the rookie quarterback. Maybe they wanted more of a run blocker for the run game as well overseas. it's just tough. Harold Fannin, I think, is a really nice long-term stash, but he's probably not somebody you can trust to start in redraft unless if something changed. Gunnar Helm, someone we've been talking about. He's not fantasy relevant for redraft, but in Dynasty, he's absolutely a must-stash. Day 3 pick. They said they were going to use him more. They did, right? 35%-ish routes run to 55%. And for a guy attached to Cam Ward, 1.42 yards per route run is amazing. That's better than Isaiah Bond, Elikai O'Manor, Mason Taylor, 7.2% first downs per route run. Not bad at all either. So Gunnar Helm is very much a guy. And really the takeaway for redraft is he is the reason why Chigo Okonkwo is no longer a streamable tight end. Chigo Okonkwo in preseason had like a 90% route share, and that's really all you're looking for from streamable tight ends. Can they just be on the field? Okonkwo has now been around like a 60% route share because of Gunnar Helm kind of displacing some of those routes, but Gunnar Helm absolutely deserves it. He's been very good on a per route basis. Then we have Isaac Tesla here. Cool story, but just a fun stash in Dynasty. Nothing else to really talk through there. Like, you probably need a Khalif Raymond injury. He only gets big route share spikes like this in blowout game scripts. They completely killed the Bengals this week. Then we have Pat Bryant here. The good, he sets a season high, 53% route share, but he didn't register a single target this week, and he only has 2 catches on the entire year. So I don't know. Maybe they see him. I was going to say maybe they see him as more of a blocking wide receiver, but he's not blocking when he's running these routes. So I don't know. But this is just like non-competitive stuff here for a receiving weapon. Then we can talk about Torrey Horton. This is much better, but again, he's somebody that's fun, but they're just so run-heavy, and he would have to beat out Cooper Kupp to ever be relevant, but he's been fun, right? His PFF grade is good. His per-route stuff is decent. He scored another touchdown, which is hilarious. If you had him in best ball, Torrey Horton's amazing, but outside of that, nothing else to really write home about. You can talk about the Texans wide receivers. Higgins and Knoll get more run in a blowout where they just absolutely kill the Ravens, but neither of these guys are startable until we can see Xavier Hutchinson and Christian Kirk's routes diminish. They have not. I will say a side note on Christian Kirk. His routes have fallen, and now Xavier Hutchinson has kind of passed him. Maybe it was due to the blowout game script, but Hutchinson scored the 2 early touchdowns. So if that's now Hutchinson passing Kirk, Kirk's honestly probably droppable in most leagues. Tez Johnson, welcome to the NFL. He gets 4 catches, 59 yards here. So it's a season high, career high, 49% route share. That's really fun. This is solid. This is solid stuff. All right. This is a packed receiver room with Egbuka at the top, and then you got Chris Godwin, you got Sterling Shepard, who they love. Tez Johnson, somebody to keep an eye on because he was a very fun prospect. To me, a day 2 talent that fell to day 3 because of the combine, where he comes in way too light. I think he came in at like 155 pounds, and then he also ran like a 4.6 or a 4.5. That's not going to work in terms of getting draft capital, but we have seen before where the combine pushed somebody down and then they were just good anyways. That could be the case with Tez Johnson. Then we're just going to kind of bounce around here. Jack Besh is a big one. This is a huge one because we just talked about Dante Thornton up here, right? Dante Thornton goes 71%, 74%. Then we fall to 56%. Now, some of this could be because of garbage time game script, right? The Colts were killing the Raiders in this game. But I think it's worth mentioning, and Jack Besh to me absolutely will be on the waiver wire stash video because this is a round 2 pick. Somebody I was very high on as a prospect. He gets beaten out by Dante Thornton in training camp, but Dante Thornton has been a 0. These are uncompetitive per route metrics. Jack Besh on a very small sample here, but starting out strong, 20% plus targets per out run, 1.82 yards per out run, 15% plus first downs per out run, 75 plus PFF grade, and I went and checked. I think he gets a bump because of the Brock Bowers injury. He played in college a little bit of tight end, a little bit of slot, a little bit on the outside. He can kind of do it all. He only played 1 snap in line, so he wasn't like the replacement tight end, and he only played 9 snaps in the slot to 25 out wide. So they were actually kind of giving him an audition as a real outside wide receiver, and he made good on that. Again, small sample, nothing crazy, but for somebody that ran 46% of the routes, the fact that he came away with 5 targets, 3 catches, 27 yards, that's not bad at all. So I'll be very curious to see if they start, shifting some of these Dante Thornton routes towards Besh, and if we can get Besh into the 70% plus area, because he has a much more fantasy-friendly skill set, where he's more of this he's like essentially if you put Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers into the same guy, that would be Jack Besh, whereas Dante Thornton's just like, I'm trying to be respectful, but he's like Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He's like a fine field stretcher with questionable hands is how I would characterize him at this point. And then the last guy I'll touch on, nothing else to really mention here, but I'll show the per out stuff if any of you guys want to look at it. We can see Mitchell Evans is the guy I'm looking for. Sadly, he goes from 47% of the routes down to 23%. He's really only getting used because JT Sanders on the Panthers is banged up right now. But these are strong per out metrics. Again, similar to guys like Gunnar Helm. He's a day 3 tight end showing a pulse. That's a W. Now, after that, let's move on to our second takeaway here, which is the pass-heavy Eagles blow it, right? They lose to the Broncos, and this one's so tricky because I do just want to talk about the Eagles offense. I know that A.J. Brown is a big panic player. I know the whole Eagles offense just kind of panic in general, and it's really tough to parse through because my initial reaction is maybe this could stick, right? Like, this is good usage for, honestly, the entire offense. They go from a minus 5% pass rate over expectation weeks 1 through 4 to a plus 19% in week 5. That is, like, exaggerated. That's crazy stuff. I think we're going to find somewhere in the middle where everybody's happy. They sit at the 19th neutral pass rate on the entire year. We'll see. The issue is that they lose this game in pretty spectacular fashion, which means maybe now they go back to being super run heavy. Maybe now they say, well, we can't win games by running the football and being this, like, kind of what the Chiefs were last year, but the Chiefs won a lot of games that way. So they're now in this really weird spot. But I want to just kind of dissect what's going on here. And first we look at the target shares. I think Ryan Heath brings up a good point here that Dallas Goedert, as much as the pass volume is an issue, Dallas Goedert is muddying things. Where if we look at the target shares in 4 games with all 3 receiving options active, A.J. Brown 23.9%, Devontae Smith 20.5%, Dallas Goedert 18.8%. Last year, A.J. Brown was at a 31.1% team market share. So that is a big issue. If Goddard is now going to be an 18% guy, which I don't know if that's going to stick, but things are getting spread out a lot more thin. I will say Devontae Smith is the wide receiver 26 right now. He's been absolutely fine for where you drafted him. A.J. Brown's the tough one. A.J. Brown has had now, I think, like 4 games in a row with 8 or more targets. That's a stat I don't want to just make up, but I heard from somebody somewhere. Yeah, he has 8 or more targets in every game besides week 1. I do truly think, and I know I keep saying this with A.J. Brown and the Eagles, I think it's just going to take some time. When you look at the slow start last year, yes, for some of these games, like without A.J. Brown and some injuries, sure, but it's just kind of been the norm for the Eagles to start slow. They get a new coordinator. They usually have a lot of success the year before. Last year, first 5 games, they were 11th in EPA per play. Then they finished the season 5th in EPA per play. This year, they're 17th. Could that jump up to the top 10 and things look a lot better? I think it will. I think A.J. Brown will get the squeaky wheel treatment. I think that we're going to see a monster A.J. Brown game here soon. We already saw one in week 3 where he put up 6 for 109 and a touchdown. I think another one of those are coming. Just like really weird energy here, but I think that they're going to kind of get it together. It's the Eagles. They usually do. They get the Giants this next week for everybody to get right. And it just wouldn't shock me. I know A.J. Brown had the weird, he should have had a long touchdown. He like slows up. He thinks Jalen Hurts isn't going to throw it. Jalen Hurts then throws it. Like, no one's on the same page right now. I think they're going to get on the same page. Saquon also not looking his best right now in terms of yards per carry, explosive rush rate, all of that. But the Broncos defense is really tough. He still had a explosive play through the air, like the big receiving touchdown. I'm still holding true again. He gets the Giants this week. Denver was always going to be a tough matchup for the Eagles. I think the Giants are going to be a nice get-right spot. They get the Giants. Vikings will be tough, but then they get the Giants again, and then they get a bye week. I think coming out of that bye, they're going to be in a much better spot as an offense. Then our third takeaway is that Greg Roman strikes back, and then we can talk about Ladd McConkey a little bit here. This is from Pat Thorman. The offensive line was super banged up. Of course, Rashawn Slater hurt. Of course, Joe Alt hurt. I think Mekhi Becton gets banged up in this game. I think maybe even another lineman gets banged up in this game. They had somebody, I think it was from this game. I remember seeing on the sideline, like a guy had like a bone protruding from his knuckle or something. Like, their offensive line is brutal. And Pat Thorman, he is the guy at Established Run that does all of the pace of play, neutral pass rate, all of that stuff. They were first neutral pass rate from weeks 1 through 4. Then in week 5, they would have had the 30th neutral pass rate on the season at 52%. Now, here's the tough part. I don't know that this sticks because they now are also probably going to be without Amari and Hampton. So now if they don't have Amari and Hampton, there's no run game to lean on, even if their O-line can't hold up in pass protection. So they're just in such a weird spot. I feel bad for the Chargers. Like the injury luck for them over the years, 5-10 years, has just been crazy. Rashawn Slater, done. Joe Alt, hurt. Offensive line, banged up. Najee Harris, weird eye injury and then torn Achilles. Now Amari and Hampton, probably a ankle injury that might sideline him for a week or two or a few weeks, who knows. Ladd McConkey scores a touchdown, but like I'm inclined to think maybe this is a sell high. Like he didn't do anything crazy. He had 21.2% target share to Quentin Johnston's 12.1%. He out-targeted and outscored Quentin Johnston for just the second time this season, according to Ryan Heath, but it still wasn't a great day. He was kind of just saved by a touchdown. I still think he's a great player. He made some key plays. He had the punt return where he just looked absolutely electric. His best game of the year, but just 14.9 PPR points, 5 catches, 39 yards. He did have a touchdown, but 5 catches, 39 yards is just really tough. I think I would lean sell high, but maybe it's the start of things to come. They get Miami next week, so that should actually be a easy matchup through the air. And then we can talk about Amari and Hampton. This one is tough, and it's why I'm like maybe not all the way out on Ladd, because maybe they're just going to have to keep on throwing the ball despite the offensive line issues, because if Amari and Hampton can't go, things get really ugly. Maybe this is where they sign Gus Edwards as somebody off the street, and maybe I'll put Gus Edwards as somebody to add off of waivers, because I think you can definitely sort of add Kamani Vidal or Hassan Haskins, but I don't think you can seriously roll one of these guys out. I will say I'm just rambling here, but it is super, super unfortunate. I want to look it up right now. Somebody that was a darling for us during Dynasty season was Rocket Sanders. Really, really fun running back out of Arkansas, then South Carolina. Size, speed, all of that. Somebody I really liked, but he ends up going like super, super late in the draft to the Chargers. But then I think they release him. Maybe they send him to the practice squad, but he gets picked up on waivers by the Browns. I believe he's still on the Browns, which is really upsetting here. If it's a situation where he's on the Browns practice squad, maybe the Chargers can come get him back, but that would have been really fun. And I can't believe that he didn't make the team over them, but I assume it was a practice squad issue. I'm sort of just rambling here, but if I was to have a lean, Dwayne McFarland puts here after Hampton goes out, you have only 2 drives. It's a 60-40 split in favor of Kamani Vidal, but at that point it was kind of a blowout, so we really don't know. It's going to be one of these 2 guys, but I think it's going to be uglier than kind of the Cardinals of Michael Carter and DeMarcado. This is much more split down the middle without much direction. So we'll see. Hopefully Hampton's all right, but it looks pretty rough right now, which leads us into our 4th takeaway, the rookie running back carousel, the world-famous rookie running back carousel, I guess. And I'm just going to get my face cam going here so you guys can see me on the side. We will go full screen here. Why not? And then I'll put myself up here. But here we go. This is the rookie running back carousel. We now have all notable rookie running backs sorted by their week 5 snap share, name, team, their PFF grade, how good did they look on film. I will say next week I will swap this where I want to put the week 3 through 5 snap shares on the other side of PFF grade, kind of like how I do with the wide receivers, but it's a small detail. You have PFF grade, PPR per touch, how efficient are you on a per touch basis? It does reward you for being a pass-catching running back, even if you are inefficient in that category, but that's fine. Points per game, so your production, and then your snap share over the last 3 weeks, just to sort of get a feel for how these guys are dominating their backfields. We talked about Hampton at the top, but Hampton, it's looking rough at this point. 60-40 split towards Kamani Vidal. Hampton likely missing a few weeks with an ankle injury. We will see in terms of updates, but all I could tell is that he was walking with a boot. But then we can talk about the rookie running back carousel. We have Cam Scatterbo up at the top. Sadly, he's been inefficient the last 2 weeks, but he's still racking up touches. He had 6 catches for 45 yards in this game. He's still been as good as you could ask for from like a round 9, round 10 running back pick. He gave you 14 PPR points this week, 13 PPR points last week. Of course, 24 versus the Chiefs the week before that. He does have a tough stretch coming up versus the Eagles, Denver, Eagles again, We'll see how things go when Tyrone Tracy gets back. But for now, he looks fine. 13.7 points per game. Still looks amazing in terms of PFF grades. He did have a fumble, but it seemed like they went back to him without much hesitation in this game. Then we can talk about Ashton Jeanty, below Hampton, below Scatabo. Now, I wanted to touch on this because his snap share is going to be really misleading here, where it's like, oh my God, this guy's falling. He's all the way back down to 55% of the snaps again. Not quite the case. This was a blowout game, and Jacob Gibbs has the stat here. Before the blowout, I was trying to figure out how to frame this. Before the blowout, he was at 90% snap rate, 80% route rate, and a 33% target share in the first half. And this is a really encouraging sign for Jeanty because I had him as a sell last week. Part of the reason was that his receiving role hasn't been great. But if this sticks and he's now out there for 80% of the routes, that is monster usage. He has had 24.9 PPR receiving fantasy points over the past 2 games after scoring only 5.3 through the first 3. We'll see if that sticks, but this was not a down game for Jeanty at all. He still looked fine. It was just a uncompetitive game from the Raiders, so I would not get too high or too low on Jeanty. Then you have Judkins, just an absolute stud. He rushes for over 100 rushing yards versus a really good Brian Flores defense, and he leads all rookies in points per game at this point in time. Then we have Bill Krosky Merritt absolutely balling out this week. He puts up a monster day. I actually just want to get the box score up here just to read it off. He gives you 14 carries, 111 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 carries, 39 receiving yards. 2 catches, 39 receiving yards. He did have a fumble loss, but they still went back to him after that. We also have this great graphic from Hayden Winks up top here. Bill Krosky Merritt started. C-Rod only had touches in complete garbage time. He's serious in fantasy now. You can see in terms of the the running back rotation, it was like Jeremy McNichols early, and then it was JCM the entire game, and then Chris Rodriguez at the very end once it was clear they were going to win that game. He's first in yards per carry this season. He's tied for 4th in rushing touchdowns. He's second in yards after contact per attempt. He has plus 110 rushing yards over expected, 8th most in the NFL, despite not having that many carries. And I wanted to bring up one more stat. This is from Josh Norris, I believe, if I can get this pulled up. Josh Norris had a really great stat from this game. When you talk about Bill, come on, can I find it? He had the longest rush or a series of long rushes for Bill in this game. He ripped off runs he produced gains on 28 snaps, gains of 28, 27, 15, 15, 12, 11, and 10, which is nuts for a guy who only had, 16 touches? I mean, it's crazy. And that's kind of the thing with Bill Krosky Merritt, why I get some people are scared. And we'll talk about Woody Marks in a second here. Some people are like, oh my God, could this be Woody Marks again? Here's the thing to me about Bill is he's just undeniable. When you look at the PFF grade here, he leads all these running backs in PFF grade. Look at PPR per touch. For a guy with only 5 catches on the year, to be leading in PPR per touch like this is nuts because it means that he is just an absolute demon on the ground. 12.1 points per game despite having the lowest snap shares for anybody above 10 points per game. He's been amazing. And then also, instead of it being Nick Chubb, who's respected as a veteran in the league, Chris Rodriguez has been cut a billion times from this team, and Jeremy McNichols is a nobody. They win this game, so you get the positive reaffirmment from the game's outcome. I think that this is going to be where Bill Krosky Merritt gets wheels all the way up. I said he was a buy candidate last week. Now he gets Chicago, and then he gets Dallas, and then he gets Kansas City, who have been bad against the run this year. It is wheels all the way up for Bill. If you have him, it is time to be excited. Now, somebody I wasn't as right on, Travion Henderson. This one is tough. And here's the issue with Henderson. He's not on the same level of undeniability as Bill. You look at the PFF grade, 56.2. Worst on the entire graphic besides DJ Giddens. That is bad. 0.9 PPR per touch. That is very much inflated due to his receiving role. 8.4 points per game. He's doing nothing. 48% snap share, then 29%, then 48%. And I wish I could victory lap or be happy about 48% snap share because it's higher than it was in week 4. But here's the issue. We had 2 Ramondre fumbles. We had a Gibson fumble. Everything set up right once again. And we still couldn't see a majority of the snap share. We still had Ramondre Stevenson having two touchdowns in this game. So at this point, it's just a Vrabel thing. It sucks. But it's also on Travion that he hasn't been good enough. I get he hasn't gotten enough touches. I'm not completely blaming Henderson, but he hasn't been undeniable. If he's been doing what Bill's doing, where he makes the most of his touches, it'd be a different story. But he's only been over 4 yards per carry in two of his 5 games. He hasn't really ripped off any huge plays. He hasn't been this explosive playmaker. Now, of course, I love Henderson, so I'm in the camp of, well, you got to get more touches for him to actually get going. It's just the nature of the beast here. He needs to make big plays on a low amount of snaps. He needs to not blow blocking assignments like he did early in the year, and he just hasn't done that. Maybe, and I hate to say this out loud, maybe he's not that good. That is a range of outcomes here. I'm not sold on that being the situation here, but it could be. But we'll see. Gibson, torn ACL. Hate to see that. Terrible kickoff return kind of injury there. And it still didn't really even benefit Henderson. So we're now in this spot where if he is good, I think he can turn things around in pass Ramondre at some point. But we're now in the area of you drafted him round 3 in really competitive leagues, maybe more like round 5 in more casual leagues. We're probably in the area of he's a bust no matter what. Like, I think there's a real outcome that he doesn't turn this thing around until like week 15 after their week 14 bye. And then if he's a 17 plus point per game scorer in week 16 or in weeks 15, 16, 17, he's maybe a playoff league winner, but he doesn't really pay off the price you paid for him on draft day. He's a luxury pick at that point, and that sucks. Similar story with RJ Harvey, another guy we'll touch on here. He's been better on a per touch basis. He's looked better. He has a better PPR per touch. He has a better PFF grade, but we're still dealing with these old school coaches of Vrabel and Sean Payton, and they're unpredictable, and they don't really care what you may think. But I will say, we talked about in the rookie receiver report, we have seen the Broncos use Pat Bryant. They used him more than ever this week. We also have seen with Vrabel where Will Campbell's a rookie. It's not like they're not using rookies. I believe, give me some respect for knowing who this guy is. I believe Joshua Farmer, day 3 pick defensive lineman out of maybe Florida State, got reps on the defensive line. So it's not like this anti-rookie policy. You know, at a certain point, you do have to start pointing the finger at the player for not being special when he's on the field. I do want to backpedal for a second. I'm not saying that Henderson's a bad player. I'm just saying there's only so much wish casting we can do until it's time to be like, maybe he's just not that good, right? Some of these rookie running back, like this whole class can't be a bunch of studs. So we'll see. I will say with RJ Harvey, it was largely a Tyler Batty, or is it Batty? Is it Bidet? I think it's Bidet. I believe it was largely a Tyler Bidet issue where he went from 17% to 22% to 4% to 10% and then a 26% snap share. So we finally had him, caged up in like a less than 10% role, and then he comes back out here, he takes a quarter of the snaps, and that is what is going to directly hurt RJ Harvey here, where pretty much if you gave RJ Harvey those 26% of the snaps to him, he'd be at 47%, which would have been more than last week. So it really is a Tyler Bidet thing there. The other two backs we'll talk about, one is Jaden Blue. He makes his debut, not very good, 4 carries, 7 yards. We'll see. But that was the shot. Miles Sanders is hurt. You get your debut, and he did nothing with it. He did have at least a big special teams contribution. I don't know if it was a punt return or kick return, but he did take it, maybe like 30 yards, which is good. We can also talk about Woody Marks. This is brutal, like rug pull is what I would call it. He played well. He's been efficient. And this one is just like unkind to the fantasy football community. He goes from 20-plus touches and 20-plus PPR points last week to 8 opportunities for 2.4 PPR points this week in what should have been a magical game script. They beat down on the Ravens. It just didn't matter. It sucks. This should have been a league winner. Now he gets a bump in the road. They're going into a bye week. He's going to have to come out of the bye week, and he's going to have to earn the lead job back from Nick Chubb, who looked good. He had a long touchdown where he played well. So now you're just kind of waiting for him to earn that opportunity again, and he kind of gets relegated a tier in your rest of season rankings moving forward, which brings us to our 5th takeaway, which is the Texans offense. There is a lot to be excited for with the Texans offense. We can kind of tie up the loose knot on this Woody Marks situation. With Stroud, it was actually more of a split. 48% for Woody Marks, 44% for Nick Chubb from Dave Richard here, but still just not enough for Woody Marks to make a real difference. Chubb had a 27-yard touchdown. He had 12 opportunities to Woody Marks' 8. I would call Chubb the 1A and Marks the 1B moving forward. But the exciting thing is that this offense should score points and look better. Now, I will say, They've played against the Titans and the Ravens the last 2 weeks, so not great. But it's just good to see them get back on track. All right, CJ Stroud has been good, right? 45 of 55 of his last 2 games, 6 touchdowns, 0 turnover-worthy plays. I think the big thing to take away is this bottom piece from Jacob Gibbs. His play action rate by week. 14%, 13%, 18%, 24%, 43%. Jacob Gibbs also had another good tweet saying that Stroud had a career low average time to throw in this game of 2.46. So I think that we're actually seeing Nick Caley learn in real time of kind of adjusting things and getting this offense to work, and that's really exciting. At first, it looked like this was going to be a season from hell for the Texans. They started 0-3. Nick Caley was looking awful, and now if we can get play action rates to spike, if we can get the time to throw down, if we can kind of play within the structure of what this offensive line is allowing the Texans, things get really exciting. So this is actually up arrows for Caley, for Stroud, for this entire Texans offense. Nico Collins gave you 16 PPR points and a 71% route share game because of the blowout. I think you take that all day long. And then we're going to shift focus to, is Darren Waller real? That is my 6th takeaway here. And I think that he is. He goes from a 36% route share to a 68% route share here. We're hoping for like 80% plus for a startable tight end. It seems like Waller is going to be trending towards that. I will say this tool as well is the utilization report over on Fantasy Life. It's a great tool. You can see he goes from 36% of the routes to 68%. I imagine we're going to get to 85% plus here very soon. I don't know why I said percent a billion times there, but you get what I'm saying. 16.2 PPR points last week, 16.3 this week. That's not going to stick, but I think he's a top 12-ish tight end rest of season in the same breath as guys like Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson and Harold Fannin, David Njoku. There's just a massive jumble after the top 6. He's somewhere in that pile if he's on your bench. I think it's also a huge win. I don't want to frame it as a huge win, but it's a huge plus for him that when we talk about in the offseason, guys like Andrew Cooper at Coupe Fiasco on Twitter is a big proponent of if a tight end is going to have a smash season, they need to be a top 2 target in their given offense. Now that there's no Tyreek Hill, it's probably just going to be Darren Waller and Jalen Waddle, though Devon Achane is making a strong case that he is the wide receiver 2 in this offense. But this has been a big bump for Jalen Waddle. If we look at the 2 games Tyreek Hill has missed since coming to Miami, Jalen Waddle is now averaging 9 targets per game, 126 receiving yards per game, 28.6 fantasy points per game from Ryan Heath. So Jalen Waddle now becomes a top 24-ish wide receiver rest of season. I will say he did this against Carolina this week where I believe he scores a touchdown on what should have been like the game-winning play. Of course, you have like poor McDaniel walking out of there with his tail tucked between his legs, but he had 9 targets, 6 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown for Waddle in this game. I will say he gets a tough slate of the Chargers, Cleveland, and then Atlanta his next 3, but it might not matter. I will say for any of you guys that care, Malik Washington versus Nick Westbrook for the wide receiver 2 spot. Nick Westbrook is running more routes because he's running in 2 wide receiver sets, but I think that they definitely prefer Malik Washington when they are in a 3 wide receiver set. Because Malik Washington had 15% target share, Nick Westbrook had 0% target share. So Westbrook-Akine is just purely running cardio out there as the wide receiver in 2 wide receiver sets. They probably prefer him blocking is really the case there for anyone out there that cares. And 63% of the routes for Malik Washington isn't enough to start him in fantasy, to be honest. But our 7th takeaway is the death of zero RB was overstated, and then we're also going to talk about messy backfields. Now, I do want to make it clear. This was a tweet of me sorting the ESPN top scorers from the week in my home league. That's all it was, and then it was a throwaway tweet. What I am not saying is that zero RB is the best strategy or the optimal strategy. It's just more so that there are many ways to, what's the saying? Like there's many ways to skin a cat. Like there's many ways to win and play fantasy football. That is the genius of it all. This is a Rorschach test. You can look at this and say, well, of the 20-plus point per game scores in half PPR, Jonathan Taylor, Kyron Williams, and Christian McCaffrey were all drafted inside of the top 3 rounds. So early round running back is sick. Or you can say you got to match those performances with Rico Dowdle, who is very clearly a start this week, right? At the minute Chuba Hubbard goes down, Rico Dowdle is now obvious, right? That's not a random flash-in-the-pan performance, right, where nobody started Trey Tucker the week he had 40-plus PPR points. Everybody started Rico Dowdle this week. Same thing can be said about Rashad White as well. Bucky Irving goes down. That one's very obvious. Then you have Javonte Williams and Bill Krosky-Merritt as like late round studs drafted on zero RB teams, but it's all mixed and matched. Did you draft maybe JT in the 2nd round and then you went hero RB and you got Bill and Dowdle late? There's just so many ways to win here. It's just that the thesis of zero RB that also kind of stretches into how I even draft my double hero RB teams of not spamming running backs you don't need, of if you draft them early, then be filling the flex late, all of that stuff. I think it's just a fun week to look at where Rico Dowdle went toe-to-toe with Jonathan Taylor, and it's why you can win in multiple ways. You can go running back heavy, you can go zero RB. It's why when I draft on stream on this channel, you'll see me, you could tune in on any given day during the summer, and my teams could look drastically different. Whether I have a team with Jonathan Taylor and Jahmyr Gibbs, I have a team where I didn't take my first running back until like round 10. So there's just multiple ways to go about playing the game, and it's all based on how the draft room comes to you, and honestly what your settings are as well. Like in a half PPR, 2 wide receiver, 1 flex league, I wouldn't recommend going 0 RB. I just think it was a funny tweet. But let's talk about the important stuff here of some messy backfields, including the 0 RB like winner type backfields, which were Carolina Panthers. I cannot believe this. I played against Rico Dowdle in 2 leagues this week that I know of. You guys know the high stakes stuff is another thing, but I played against him in your elite league mates. Nick Ercolano, of course, had him there. And then in my subscriber league, the Basement Invitational, I played against Rico Dowdle there. So just like, God, like I'm still upset about it. This guy comes in here and puts up 200 plus scrimmage yards. Like one of the more, I posted on Twitter the meme of like Corey Brewer's 50 plus point game in the NBA, if you guys can remember that. But I just cannot believe this guy, Rico Dowdle, single-handedly probably gets Mike McDaniel fired here. He puts up 23 carries, 206 yards, a touchdown, 3 catches, 28 yards. He was a monster. He never even did this. I don't think he ever had a 30-plus point game on the Cowboys last year. Yeah, even on the Cowboys, he not only never had a 30-point game, he only crossed 20 points twice. So just like, tip your cap to Rico Dowdle. Miami run defense is Swiss cheese. And when we look at like the nerd stuff from Ryan Heath here, 85% backfield carry share, 13% target share, both carries inside the 10. Better role than Hubbard has had in any game since week 2. And I think now what happens here is that when Hubbard gets back from injury, who knows if that's this week, next week, whenever, I think it's going to be much more of a split than it was before. Like if it was, I'll look here, it was more like a 60-40. Yeah, it was like 60-40 weeks 3 and 4 towards Hubbard. It might even be now a 60-40 towards Rico Dowdle. It wouldn't shock me at all. Chuba Hubbard has been fine. Like not amazing. He's been fine. But like Rico Dowdle might have found something. I don't know. We'll see. But I just think it makes Hubbard this guy who was kind of a dead zone-ish style back where he was just projected for a ton of volume on a bad Carolina team. Rico Dowdle has now muddied the waters, even though we didn't think he was a good running back heading into the season. Then we can talk about Tampa Bay. We had Bucky Irving go down here. Bucky Irving, by the way, real bummer. Like reports came out that apparently he was like hiding a shoulder injury from the team. So now he has a foot injury, a shoulder injury. Bucky Irving's looking rough, is what I'll say. But if you have Rachaad White, he's plug and play. 80-20 split between him and Sean Tucker. 20-plus PPR points. Rachaad White's an RB1 in any game Bucky Irving misses. Then we have the Arizona backfield, another 0 RB situation where Michael Carter you could pick up for free. Like DeMarcado was the guy picked up. Everybody thought it was Trey Benson a week ago. And now all of a sudden the chaos of the season allows Michael Carter to get you 18.3 points for free. I picked him up for $0 in my home league. Of course, thankfully didn't play against Rico Dowdle there. But Michael Carter by Dwayne McFarland here, 18.3 fantasy points, about 60% of the snaps, 67% of the attempts, 49% of the routes, 17% target share, borderline RB2 until Benson returns, and the opportunities by Jared Smola, 18 carries, 5 targets for Carter, 4 carries, 1 target for Bam Knight, which is hilarious. Bam Knight and Michael Carter both came from the Jets. I couldn't connect the dots, but I don't know if they have like a GM or somebody on staff from the Jets, but just very funny that Michael Carter and Bam Knight are now actually like getting reps for the Cardinals. And then Amari DeMarcado, 3 carries. Of course, the crazy fumble at the goal line. Gannon comes over to him and like almost like punches him in the chest. DeMarcado probably gets banished to the Shadow Realm. And for as long as Trey Benson's out on IR, Michael Carter, like a top 25-ish play in any given week, that he is the guy. Then we can talk about the Seattle backfield. That's something I get asked about a ton. And I think my buddy Nick Ercolano put it really well earlier today of just Kenneth Walker is going to put up the most impressive 12 for 90 and 0 you've ever seen every single week. And then Charbonnet is going to put up the least impressive 12 for 40 and a touchdown you've ever seen every single week. And that's kind of it. We have in their games together this year from Ryan Heath above that. Walker's, of course, killing him in yards per carry. They're about splitting everything 50-50. Walker has 3 carries inside the 10, and Charbonnet has 8 carries inside the 10. If you want anything to take from this in terms of positive, Walker did have 2 carries inside the 10 this week, 2 of his 3 total in the games he shared with Charbonnet. So it's a 50-50 split. It's frustrating. Kind of poetically finishes the RB24 and the RB25 this week, despite Walker looking and playing better and Charbonnet vulturing the touchdown, but it just is what it is here. Both had 11 opportunities. It sucks. You're hoping one of them pulls away, and until that happens, it's going to be frustrating. Then we can talk about New Orleans. This one is shocking. Kendre Miller continues to eat into Alvin Kamara's role. This was the first time this season that Kendre out-carried Kamara. Kamara had 12 touches to Kendre Miller's 11 touches. Kamara is now outside the top 24 running backs on the season in points per game. Kind of one of those situations of like the McQueen's fading style meme. It's tough. We'll see if Kamara gets traded or what happens here, but Kendre Miller is obviously starting to become a priority in this offense. Then we can talk about the Jets. I only bring them up because this is the first game, full game without Braylon Allen. You can see in terms of the utilization score, this is by Dwayne McFarland over on Fantasy Life. It's a very cool metric that just takes into account snaps, rush attempts, like all of those metrics to the left. It takes all of them into account and then produces a utilization score. The higher your utilization score, the better you should be scoring in fantasy football. His only 2 games over 80 utilization score have come with the Braylon Allen injury in week 4, and then, of course, no Braylon Allen in week 5. So it's wheels up for Breece Hall. It's just tough because this offense, one, sucks. Also, because this team sucks, Breece Hall had 14 of 15 running back carries. That is amazing. But when you're losing so bad the entire game, you can't get to like 20-plus running back carries. So if this was a game that was competitive, maybe Breece Hall had 20, 25 carries, but in non-competitive game scripts, it's just really tough. Isaiah Davis is purely a pass-catching specialist where I believe he had 4 targets, but just 1 carry to Breece's 14 carries and 5 targets. It's good usage. It's just tough. He hasn't been able to get touchdowns in this scheme. He hasn't been able to rack up a bunch of touches because they're never in competitive games and they can't just spam the running back. So it gets really tough. He'd crush otherwise, but for now he's a fine RB2 with upside. Then the last backfield we'll touch on here is the Tennessee backfield. This is the first game with Tyjae Spears. Nothing really to write home about. Spears was the preferred third down back here from Dave Richard. Pollard had a 72% snap share. That was a season low, but he had a season high 14.8 PPR points. So he's just a fine back-end RB2, high-end RB3 moving forward. Tyjae Spears remains a fine stash moving forward. Then my 8th takeaway is some takeaways from the Giants-Saints game. My first takeaway is Spencer Rattler a guy? Spencer Rattler is not terrible. When we look at EPA per play and completion percentage over expectation, he comes in here like in a fine group. Like that's not a great group to be a part of, but he's in this tier of like, like this metric isn't a perfect stat, but he's just, I think the big win that I'm trying to just point out here, not that this is like the perfect measure of how good a quarterback is, but just the fact that he's not in the bottom left with Cam Ward and Joe Flacco, I think is huge. I think that is so massive that Rattler is just packed in the middle in this like Jalen Hurts, Tua, Justin Fields, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix area, almost like perfectly down the middle of just like fine quarterback play. That is, to me, amazing for Spencer Rattler. You go even deeper from Jacob Gibbs here. He is one of 2 quarterbacks next to Sam Darnold with 30 or more attempts with 0 off-target throws in Week 5. He's been decent. I think the Saints still draft a quarterback and go away from Rattler, but I think Rattler's going to stick around this league as a legit backup quarterback. I'll also talk about this tight end room. We had Juwan Johnson banged up. We had Foster Moreau back in the mix. We had Taysom Hill back in the mix. Juwan Johnson still 80% plus route share, but only a 13% target share. We now have back-to-back duds for Juwan Johnson, and he's kind of fading away from that set-and-forget tight end that he was for the first 3 weeks. He's now just another streamable tight end in that huge group of Juwan Johnson's in there, Darren Waller's in there, Hawkinson, Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Harold Fannin, David Njoku, Evan Ingram, Brenton Strange. There's a billion of these guys. Dalton Kincaid, Hunter Henry. That's just where he is at this point. I will say Taysom Hill, people were very excited about him. He took 6 snaps at quarterback, a tight end snap, a running back snap, a wide receiver snap. I think it's going to be a while until he fully ramps up to like a real role, but at least this coaching staff with Kellen Moore is like staying true to using him in that weird gadgety style role. Then we can also talk about on the other side of this Giants game, Theo Johnson is here to stay. Theo Johnson had 70% plus route share in this game, his 4th game doing so in his last 5. In this game, he had 2 touchdowns. The last 2 games with Jackson Dart, they've just been completely on the same page, where last week he had 3 for 17 and a touchdown. This week he had 6 catches, 33 yards, and 2 touchdowns. We'll see if this sticks. I will say he's more of a deeper league guy. Like, I still would prefer your Darren Wallers and your Juwan Johnsons and your Dalton Kincaids and Dallas Goedert, all of those guys. But if we're now getting to like the Dalton Schultz area and like the Mason Taylor area, that's where you start talking yourself into Theo Johnson. I'll also bring up that Darius Slayton gets hurt in this game, but Wan'Dale Robinson has been at 95% or more of the routes in these last 2 weeks, despite before that having 82% of the routes as his previous high. So he's now an every down wide receiver. Slayton's banged up. Malik Neighbors is banged up. I think better days are ahead for Wan'Dale Robinson. Then my 9th takeaway is from the Detroit Lions game. The takeaway here is let's just step inside my office. Let's have a talk about Jameson Williams here for a second. It's not good. I think the guy hurt most by the Ben Johnson departure is Jameson Williams from J.J. Zacharyson here. He goes from, in 2024 to 2025, 3.9 receptions per game to 2.2, 66.7 receiving yards to 44.6, 0.5 touchdowns per game to 0.2, 14.2 PPR points per game to 7.9. It's tough. This was the blow-up spot versus a awful Bengals defense. Lions projected for all the points in the world, and he couldn't come through. He's now just like a boom-bust wide receiver 4 flex piece. That's really not all that different from a like Rashid Shaheed, which is really scary to say out loud. He's going to have his big weeks. It could be next week where he puts up a 30 bomb, but he is very much this boom-bust guy that is so bust that he's hurting your lineup every week. I'll also say I will take my L and I'll fold on Jahmyr Gibbs RB1 overall. He was my RB1 overall heading into the season in terms of redraft rankings. When I put out my rest of season rankings on the Patreon this week, I literally had a little note. Jahmyr Gibbs is my RB1 overall this week. If he can't put up a monster game versus the Bengals, I will fold. I will capitulate. And that's where we're at here. It's not even like I'm not even saying Gibbs is a bust or a bad pick. I'm just saying personally, I will wave the white flag on him being the RB1 overall. Like if we were, up until this week, if we were doing a redraft where we all sit in a circle and we draft fantasy football teams, he would still be my first running back off the board. Now he's I would go in some order of McCaffrey, JT, Bijan, then it would be Gibbs. So now he's like my RB4 rest of season, which is still fine. I think there's still a pathway that over the last 6 to 8 weeks, he's the RB1 overall in points per game and is absolutely amazing. But based on what we've seen so far, you just can't rank him there. This is all of the running backs on Fantasy Life sorted by PPR points per game with their utilization score next to them. You can see McCaffrey's at 90 plus and 20 plus, JT 90 plus, 20 plus, Bijan 90 plus, 20 plus, and Gibbs is instead with your James Cook, 83, 84, 19 PPR points. That's still great. Gibbs isn't killing you if you drafted him. He's just the bottom line is he's 5 points per game behind JT and McCaffrey at this point. So I think it's stubborn to say otherwise. But we can also talk about the Bengals side here. That I think T. Higgins, despite scoring a touchdown in this game, probably the biggest loser from the Joe Burrow injury. This is from Ryan Heath, where you can see T. Higgins in 3 full games with Jake Browning, just 16.3% target share and hasn't exceeded 32 receiving yards in any game with Browning. Brutal stuff. Jamar Chase is still the alpha. He's still that guy. And I did want to say, he might be the best spike week wide receiver of his generation. And what I mean by that is we look at 25 plus PPR point games since he came into the league. It is Tyreek Hill, and then it's Jamar Chase in terms of having 20 or more. And the only player to hit a 50 plus PPR point game since then is Jamar Chase, and he's done it 3 times. Only 3 players as wide receivers have hit 50 plus PPR points. Chase has done it 3 times. Even with Jake Browning, he is still somebody that can win you a week with what he did this week was a 29-point bomb in your wide receiver spot. That's what he's going to do. 3 of these 25 plus PPR point games have come in games where Joe Burrow didn't play or that he left early. So Chase, his floor is absolutely 0 with Jake Browning, but the ceiling is still very much there. Then our 10th takeaway is our route watch that we've been doing. Some key players in terms of their route shares. My bad. I should have kind of sniffed this out last week where I saw Calvin Ridley 42% of the routes and I just buried him. I was like, all right, so he just sucks. He's just getting benched. No, he was actually hurt. He plays in this game 80% plus of the routes, and he actually plays really well. He makes a huge late game. It was like over his shoulder on the boundary catch to get the team in field goal position and win this game. He has 10 targets most of the year, 5 catches most of the year, 131 yards most of the year. He is now fully back on the menu as a flex moving forward. Then we can talk about the Colts receivers. We have A.D. Mitchell completely banished to the shadow realm. 6% of the routes, they were not messing around after the touchback last week that cost them the game. But the unfortunate part is that Ashton Doolin is their preferred wide receiver to Josh Downs in 2 wide receiver sets. Now, Josh Downs still had a 25% target share. He still had 11.4 PPR points. That's fine, but it's just really tough. On somebody we had high expectations for, he is very strictly a flex play, and when Alec Pierce comes back, he's like a desperation flex play. And then the last guy we'll talk about is Stephon Diggs. This one was shocking to me. Monster game for Stephon Diggs. He's still someone you can very much flex, but after hitting 80% plus of the routes last week, I thought we were in store for more of that this week. Instead, he goes down to 64%. Now, I assume, I don't have the numbers on hand, but I assume that there was a higher pass volume in this game, if that makes sense, right? Where they absolutely stomped on the Panthers last week. They stomped on the Panthers. So maybe it was a situation where they didn't have to pass the ball as much. So like his raw routes might be similar over the past 2 weeks is what I'm trying to say. But still, 52% targets per out run in this game, 24.6 PPR points in this game, 12 targets, 10 catches, 146 yards, back-to-back weeks of 100-plus receiving yards. And now he gets New Orleans in the Dome in New Orleans and then Tennessee as his next 2 matchups. He is very much a fine flex piece moving forward. And I do want to also give a shout-out to Drake Maye. Drake Maye is in the top right of this chart, right? If you look at up here, he's up there with Sam Darnold, Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Josh Allen, Daniel Jones. That is super, super impressive, just given this supporting cast, right? Where after Stephon Diggs, he's thrown to Demario Douglas and Kayshon Boutte and Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. And the offensive line is good, but not great. Really, really impressive. Last night in prime time, he goes toe-to-toe with Josh Allen and out-duels him. I said take a bow, like truly. It scares me as a Jets fan that this is what I'm staring down the barrel of, but as somebody with a lot of Drake Maye in Dynasty, I'm also excited. Like he had a better EPA per play, which is per play efficiency, than Josh Allen, better CPOE, better QBR. He wins as a 7.5-point underdog on the road in Buffalo. Drake Maye's the truth. It didn't really show up in the fantasy football box score, but he's going to be one of these next guys. Drake Maye is officially here. And that quarterback class of Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Penix, Bo Nix looks really, really strong at this point. But that is going to do it for us today. Top 10 takeaways, rookie receiver report, rookie running back carousel, everything you needed to know to go out here and dominate moving forward heading into week 6. As always, this video, the rookie receiver report, all of that is sponsored by Underdog. When you use promo code RON and you play $5, you will get $50 in bonus funds in your account. Links in the description and the comment section for that. But as always, if you enjoy, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I will see y'all in the next one.
Stones, like this froze, ice cold, ice around my body like I'm